right, let's go ahead and kick this off. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dustin Beekman. I'm the Director of Business Development at the Medical Society of Virginia. I'm very excited to have one of our trusted partners, Dominion Payroll, for this morning's webinar. And the MSV is pleased to welcome Leslie Bruno. Leslie leads the HR Consulting Services Division at Dominion Payroll, which is headquartered in Richmond. She and her team assist clients with a range of people management projects, including assuring compliance with state and federal law, creating internal policies that work best for each organization, and developing best practices for managing and developing a happy, high-performing team. In 2020, she found herself at the intersection of COVID-19 and its effect on organizations, both financially and emotionally, while navigating federal and state COVID-19 guidelines, and has co-produced daily webinars with her Dominion Payroll colleagues since late March of 2020. Before I turn it over to Leslie, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. If you'd like to ask a question, please utilize the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If your question is not answered, please email the MSV team at memberservice@msv.org. And as with all of our webinars, this session will be recorded and posted to our website later on. On behalf of all our membership and staff at the Medical Society of Virginia, I'd like to thank you all for taking some time to be with us this morning. And now I'll hand it over to Leslie.
Thanks, Dustin. I never have really understood how to sit and listen to someone read my bio, and also it's so full of jargon. Remind me to reword that so it does not sound so jargony. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Happy Friday. Hope you're having, wherever you are in the state, I hope you're having a good morning so far. And I want to thank the MSV team for partnering with us on this important topic. Their work is so important, and we're just thrilled to be able to align what we've been talking about with their mission and their value to you as members. So we hope you get a lot out of this today. We are Dominion Payroll. We work with a variety of different types of clients throughout a variety of different industries. So typically my webinar content is a bit more broad. So today, if you please share with me in the Q&A if you have any particular specific anecdotes or things to share or questions about your practice or what you're seeing. And obviously, it's a two-way street. We'd love. I know your peers would love to hear from you too. So use that Q&A anytime during the while I'm rambling on this morning, and we'll see if we can get your question answered, or we'd love to hear a story about what you're doing in your practice to engage your team or otherwise help with employee burnout. So that said, I'm just gonna move right along. I will say up front that there is a cat and a 7-year-old that are right here that will probably be making an appearance at some point. So bear with me. All right, and let me just pause 1 second. It looks like my battery is running low. Just give me 1 sec and I'm gonna go make sure I'm plugged in. Just bear with me. And here's some housekeeping that you can, that Dustin just shared, and just as a reminder. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right, so like we said, we'll have this webinar recorded and posted on the website later on. So if you'd miss it or didn't hear all, or multitasking and didn't hear all of it, that's fine. We'll be okay. And then please use the Q&A section on your screen and not the chat for any sort of questions that you have. My first question, though, is I know that the title of this webinar is about the is about your team, but my first question is, how are you? You're tuning in today because you have questions or concerns or what have you about your team, but really starting with yourself is the best thing. I know there's been a lot of talk in the past 14 months about self-care and, I mean, what is self-care really when you're working 12 hours a day and nonstop? It's kind of tough to step back and think about yourself often. And so that's a question I wanted to ask you guys today. You don't necessarily have to answer it. It's more of a rhetorical self-reflection prompts this morning, because your team looks to you, your team looks to your leadership and the way that you treat yourself. So I wanted to mention a program, if you're not already aware of it, that MSV has. It's called Safe Haven. It's a really exciting resource for pretty much everybody in the healthcare profession here. It has a pretty expansive list of people that it serves: physicians, PAs, residents, nurses, and pharmacists, as well as medical, nursing, PA, and pharmacy students. And it provides confidential support for burnout, career fatigue, and mental health issues without the fear of undue repercussions to your medical license. It's made for physicians, it's by physicians. It is, and again, that key piece that there are protections, liability protections for you if you seek help with these types of issues that MSV has lobbied for and won. So it's an exciting program. You can go to msv.org/safe haven and find out more. Dustin tells me it operates similar to an EAP program. And so there's a bundled package of services available depending on your needs. So keep this in mind. Check it out when you have a free minute. Of course, the MSV team will answer any questions that you have about it confidentially going forward. Dustin, is there anything else you'd like to add about this program that I might have glossed over or missed? Did I put him on the spot?
I think you did a great job. Just one maybe point of clarification. I think you said maybe the word free. It's not free. It's a subscription-based model, so there is a charge to it. But anyone can enroll. It's if you're an individual physician, PA, you can enroll. It's available for groups. So if you want to get it for your entire practice, that would be nurses and/or physicians. That's available as well. We're happy to have conversations with you to see if it's a good fit for your organization, to be able to provide some well-meaning and some really strong resources that are available 24/7, 365. So thank you for that plug.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely a worthy program. All right, and looks like the marketing team has put the link to that in the chat. Thank you very much for that. All right, so moving on, as you all know, there are some definite challenges to your particular industry, and I by no means think that this is an exhaustive list that I'm about to put through here, but these are some of the ones that I think are pretty common. Again, please feel free to add on to this in the Q&A. But as you know, right now, there is a very interesting labor market going on in the United States. Healthcare is with no exception. Since the last quarter of 2020, healthcare as an industry is down over 40,000 jobs. So that can mean your team might be a little leaner. That might be something that you're struggling with. Maybe you're struggling to find people to fill positions, or maybe you're not. Maybe your team is fully staffed. Hopefully that's the case for you, but the math is out there, and that might be something that you're struggling with. Another thing that you might be adjusting to now that we're in this 2021, this phase of the pandemic, is that you're now juggling in-person patients and still maybe some telehealth appointments, also vaccine appointments if you're a vaccine provider. And so juggling and assessing who should be come into the office, who shouldn't, who doesn't necessarily need to, maybe somebody's too afraid. This is something that it's not a bad problem to have, but it's definitely can pose some logistical issues. Technology, we've all relied on technology 1,000 more %.
Hi, everyone. It looks like she may have fallen off. Let's just give her a minute to join back. I apologize for technical difficulties this morning. Thank you.
So like I was saying, technology can be our friend and it can be our foe. And just now it was my foe. So perhaps this is something that you have struggled with this year as you're trying to accommodate pandemic expectations in terms of telehealth, or even sort of the strain on your already existing system. So that's something that could be a stressor for you as well. And then we all know childcare is a thing. We are all struggling with, those of us who have children, with the current realities of kids being at home for all or part of the time. And that could be means that your staff is affected by that as well and stretched in terms of their hours. So surely you've also been experiencing that with your teams. And then again, your mental health. How are you feeling? Leadership gets burnout too. Employees look to you for inspiration, but also transparency. And don't be afraid to admit when you're tired or overwhelmed. I think that that's appreciated by employees. I mean, clearly they look to you for leadership, but also you're a human being and you're not a robot. And so you need to be able to take care of yourself. And hopefully you can find ways to do that through either the MSV resource or somebody else.
Hey, Leslie, I don't think your screen is showing. Do you just...
Oh, okay, hold on a second. Goodness, technology today is just not my friend. All right, how's that?
Yep, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so like I said, I'll show you my little slides real quick because the pictures are pretty. Technology could be a problem for you right now. Definitely something you should invest in if you haven't already. Childcare is still a thing that so many people theorize that the labor market is affected partially by childcare situations for your team. And then, like I said, your mental health is just as important as everybody else's on your team. They are looking to you for inspiration and transparency. Don't be afraid to admit when you're tired or overwhelmed. All right, so those are some things that you're facing. We all, and probably more than that list, but what can we do about it? Now, I don't pretend to have all of the answers for your particular team today. I am happy to answer your questions. If you don't feel comfortable putting them into the Q&A today, there will be a web email address at the end of this presentation if you would like to talk individually. And again, of course, the MSV has that really great safe haven resource. So one of the things that people have sort of getting back to a sense of, if 2020 was a year of survival and sort of just making it through it, making our way through it, 2021 is now the word culture is kind of coming back into play. I know among my team at Dominion Payroll, we started to really feel that our culture had been affected by all being scattered around at home. Now that's a different story. Healthcare, you guys can't work from home, but your culture may otherwise still be affected by the stress and all of the aforementioned factors that we talked about in the previous slides. Culture is a word that's thrown around a lot. Some people get a little eye rolly with it, and that's totally understandable. The definition that I'm going with is actually from my friends at the company called Floricane, which is here in Richmond. I actually used to work with Floricane. They are a strategic planning and organizational development firm that does some amazing work. And unfortunately, they couldn't join me today, but they let me use some of this content, which I think is spot on. So their definition of culture is a pattern of shared basic assumptions, norms, and ways of being that members of an organization have learned and maintained. So this is what we're saying here is the more consistency and commonality among your people around the ways of being, both in the organization and to each other online and using technology. The more that's consistent and understood and reinforced, the healthier your team will be, and the more they'll feel like part of the family and understood and not isolated, and also feel like they can reach out and get and be honest about how they're feeling and get the help that they need. So employee engagement is another sort of phrase that gets bandied about, and that's been sort of coming back up in 2021. If 2020 was the year of keeping employees on the payroll, 2021 is the year of re-engaging them. And so Floricane's definition of employee engagement is the levels of enthusiasm and connection that employees have with their organization. So again, that's something that's, it seems like a nice thing to have, and it might be something that you're, enthusiasm might be a tough thing to come by when you're working so hard. So take that with a grain of salt. It's definitely all relative for each organization. But we do know through research that employees that are engaged tend to give their best each day, or more so of their best. They tend to be more committed to the organization's mission, goals, and values. They tend to be proactive and creative in solving problems. So that's a big one for me. That's, I've worked throughout my life to be a solution-focused person. I don't always accomplish that, but some days it's just easier to vent about the things that are going wrong and not think about the alternative to that. But if I'm more engaged and I'm more committed and I feel like more of a stakeholder in my organization and my department, then I definitely I'm more apt to be a solution-focused person. And then highly engaged employees are motivated to propel organizational success with an enhanced sense of their own well-being as a contributing factor. So all of that means is that they see a rising tide lifts all boats. They use that as a lens for the organization, as opposed to just seeing themselves as just sort of an isolated person within an organization of other isolated people. So that is really what you want, right? You want somebody who feels like a stakeholder, who feels like part of this larger effort to accomplish the mission and vision and live the values of your organization. So this employee engagement, it really goes hand in hand with a strong organizational culture. Okay, but what does that actually mean? So, everybody's different, every practice is different, every organization is different, but essentially we put together here, Floricane's put together here 8 key needs of people in the workplace. They need to feel aligned with, basically their values and their mission need to be aligned with the organizations. They need to feel connected, so connected to that mission, connected to their peers, connected to their patients, connected to their boss, connected to partners. They just need to feel like they are recognized and valued. And then they need that guiding vision and voice. So leadership is really important. And like I said, leadership, the mental health of leadership is really important, but also leadership has the added role of being that guiding vision and voice. And if you find yourself in a supervisory position and you haven't had really necessarily been trained to be a supervisor, which happens a lot of people become directors and managers and supervisors because they've been great at their job and they've gotten promoted, and that's where they've achieved additional certifications, but they may not have ever been formally taught how to manage people. If that's something you feel like you struggle with, that third bullet, you might want to ask or seek out some guidance in that area. It's definitely something that would benefit you and your team. Another thing employees need is the need to feel control. So a bit of autonomy, maybe a bit of, if you're a micromanager, maybe step back on that a little bit and see what some things you can sort of let go of. And then control of their environment, control of their schedule, control of their work-life balance. And so working with employees to figure out what control means to them and maybe start with what they feel is out of control and then work back from there. The need to feel safe. So safe is a term that can be applied to a couple of different things. They need to feel safe from deadly viruses. They need to feel safe from themselves. Maybe they're so burnt out and exhausted and overextended that they don't really feel sort of mentally, maybe their little their fuse is a little short, or they have their bedside manner has suffered a little bit. that's all safety, that's safety from yourself, it's safety from a virus. Obviously you want to keep them safe in other ways. Safe could mean confidence that they have a place to talk, so someone to talk to if they need to, that they won't feel any repercussions. That 7th bullet there, the need to feel momentum. Okay, yes, we've all been in this pandemic for 14 months and it feels like a daily just slog through mud sometimes, but give people a sense of where we're headed. Here at Dominion Payroll, we do twice a week full staff meetings, and very often those meetings feature the CFO or the COO, and they give us a really great, pretty transparent snapshot of where the company is financially now, what our goals are, where we are operations wise, personnel wise, et cetera, and what the vision is for that. And so that we all feel educated, but also part of the discussion, and we understand more about why some of the decisions are being made. And that last bullet there is sort of sums up everything, is the need to be heard and understood. Be available for your folks, listen, check in on them. And, even if it's something that you think, oh my gosh, is this person really complaining about this? And once again, we're all dealing with it. Sometimes just allowing them to vent is all you need to do. Maybe you don't even have to solve the problem, just listen. And that might be sufficient. So that's really what the 8 sort of big human needs are at work, and probably at home too. Okay, so what about solutions? Enough about these problems. What about solutions? So again, these may or may not apply to you in your particular practice, and they're very general. But the first one is to go back to that culture definition and see how you can perhaps take a minute to look forward and see some areas where your culture may have a deficit. I'm not saying that you guys have to go and do a team building exercise every week or trust falls or something that takes up too much of your time, but certainly there are some little things you can do, and maybe some big things, to make people feel more satisfied in those 8 ways that I just talked about. We'll talk more about that in a second. The second solution is to be flexible in service to well-being, and that includes yourself. And the third one is to do less and do more with purpose. And I'll talk about that in just a second. All right, a culture vision basically means sitting down and asking yourself, what do you want your people to say about this organization during and after this crisis? What actions will they remember? Actions, good or bad? Will they remember you as their leader, being upbeat and open and receptive? Or will they remember you as being sort of closed off and stressed out? No judgment there, just assess sort of what you think people will remember. And then what stories will they tell? Will they have some uplifting stories to tell? Will they have some understandably not as uplifting stories to tell? Are they given a space to tell those stories? And in what ways can you shape those stories going forward? How are they able to tell those stories? Do you guys have some sort of way to share? If you guys even are, certainly if you guys are together, is there a time for you guys to share thoughts about the day and observations or challenges? Or is there an electronic resource? Here at Dominion Payroll, we use Teams for quite a bit of our information sharing, shout outs, questions, silly little things that just sort of bring people a quick moment of zen during their busy day. Now, what in the heck does being flexible in the service to well-being means? What does that mean? Well, it means a couple of things. Recognizing that each employee has different needs and will require a different approach. I'm a really big believer in self-awareness, sort of self-assessments. The one that I love and that we used at Floricane is called Insights Discovery. If you've taken that, that means that you have a color that you fall somewhere on this color wheel, and you get this 30-page booklet about yourself that's so spot on, it's eerie. And just whenever I have a team, I always share mine with my team and ask them to, I pay for them to go through the assessment and get their booklet, and then I read theirs, and it's eye-opening. It tells me so much about them. It helps me figure out how to approach them when they're stressed. It helps me mitigate stress in a lot of ways. Communication styles are big, how they like to be managed. I mean, it's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. It doesn't have to be insights discovery, but if there's something out there that you are able to invest in, and then have some time to unpack the results with your team, I think that will really help if you're having some communication issues or some personality conflicts. Meet people where they are, both logistically and emotionally. So again, that sort of goes hand in hand with the first bullet, but of course, people might have things going on at home. Like we mentioned, when they might be really struggling with their childcare schedule. So try and see. I know it can be challenging sometimes with in your particular industry, but try to see where you can, as a company, meet them where they are. Maybe it's just a temporary thing, or maybe it's something longer term, and that'll go a long way. Change how you've been doing things in service to what's needed. This bullet can go a couple different ways. It could be a process change. It could be, like I said, a technology change. It could be maybe you as a manager need to sort of assess how you are managing your folks. Maybe it's hey guys, we're going to increase our monthly meetings to every other week because I feel like we just need shorter, quicker touch points with one another. Maybe you have maybe you bring in lunch once a week and sort of force people to eat together and talk to one another, which I know can be difficult sometimes. But that's, that bullet there is sort of gives you some leeway to sort of say, you know what, maybe we've been doing something, maybe what we did in 2020 was fine, or maybe we did it in 2019 and that worked then, but 2021 is a different story. And then that last one is prioritize taking care of yourself and your needs and model that to your people and peers and make this a cultural norm. I have definitely been guilty with this with my team and sort of slipping and not taking care of myself and my needs. And then that definitely seeps into my work and my attitude and how I treat not how I treat clients, but how I approach client work. And, like I'm transparent with my team. If I'm having a day, then I will definitely let them know about that because, I don't want to gloss over and pretend that I don't have feelings and I'm not human. But at the same time, I tackle that day and understand from a broader perspective that it's just a day. It's not everything. And everybody has days like that. So we try really hard to make that what we say here is a cultural norm around let's be honest with one another. We're not robots. We're not, we're not expected to be perfect every day. Let's identify and discuss those down times and also discuss the great times. When you're feeling really good, make that a cultural norm to share it. And your team will definitely take note and will follow your lead. Okay, and that third bullet is an intriguing one. So do less, but then do more with purpose. How do you do that? So the do less really means creating slack. It's your workplace might be very different in terms of expectations comparing 2021 to maybe where we were in 2019 the same time. Expectations might be adjusted. You might need to take a step back and say, all right, there may be some things that we can ease up on in terms of what we're asking our staff to do. I know that's very specific to your situation, but that is definitely something you can take a look at. Decrease screen time. I don't know if that's been an issue for you all. I know for a lot of other sectors that went completely remote, it's just been one Zoom call after another. I'm not sure if that's something that's been an issue for you given your industry, but definitely if there is a lot of screen time and there's some of it that can be cut out, it's so much nicer to not have to spend a lot of time on screens. We've gotten used to it. I've gotten used to it, but it's so much more fulfilling to meet in person. Nix the non-essentials. And this also applies, this is going to sound weird, but if you've sort of overdone it on employee engagement and you've tasked some employees to put together an elaborate birthday party for everybody who has birthdays in May, and that's just adding to their plate, maybe you can downgrade that a little bit and just put cupcakes in the staff room and a card so that it's not adding, your heart's in the right place, but the work that it takes to do that is something that is just not necessary right now. And everybody will, I'm sure, appreciate that. And then that fourth bullet is kind of the same thing, is slow down or simplify celebrations. Don't overcompensate. And if that's something that makes you all feel good, by all means, keep doing it. But if it's just simply adding to people's stress, then it might be something to consider easing up on a little bit. Another non-essential could be some meetings. You might not have to do all the meetings that you're doing. So that's something, again, is very specific to your practice, but it's hard sometimes to identify what is essential and what is non-essential. My best advice is to give it a try. And if you find yourself, if you take some meetings off the calendar and you find yourself missing them, or they were really important, or they were good for morale and engagement, then just put them back on, just an experiment. And then the second half of this is to do more with purpose. Make sure your meetings have a point. If it's supposed to be a working meeting, keep it a working meeting. If it's more of a coaching session or a venting session or problem solving session, then identify that going in and make sure you keep it to task. Carve out intentional space for personal check-ins. So that's more of a, hey, how you doing, Jane? We're not talking about work right now. We're talking about you. We're talking about your health, your attitude, your outlook. How do you feel? Do you feel supported? Do you feel isolated? How are you feeling? And that can be something that you can do on a regularly scheduled basis, or make it more ad hoc. There are pros and cons to those. A regularly scheduled check-in is something that somebody can prepare for. But sometimes the ad hoc ones get a more true sense of what that person's feeling because they didn't prepare for it. So it just depends on how you want to go there. And then those meaningful moments of connection if your culture needs a boost. And again, not to create extra work for anybody. I think creating Slack and doing more with purpose can seem at odds with one another, but it's sort of the way that you do it. It doesn't have to be this elaborate thing. Small moments of connection, little things. It doesn't have to be big. And if it's not something in person, you can certainly do it online, but in person was always best. And even if it's just leaving a note on your colleague's desk or something nice that they might like, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be an actual outing or something like that. Okay. The other things you can do, which we call culture boosts, and again, my Flora King colleagues came up with a lot of this list, is that little culture boosts are things that can connect your staff across departments and internal teams. They're meaningful and intentionally designed group or one-on-one conversations. And again, this sort of dovetails with what we were just talking about. You might have your own staff, but then there might be other departments too that really would benefit from some cross-departmental connection, whether that's around the work product, around the process, around patient care, or around how you all are as a culture, or both. You could take a look at your mission, vision, and values and make sure that those are still up to date and valid. That's a great way to get your people to get sort of step out of the day-to-day work and look at the bigger picture. That leadership update reality check. What's the state of the practice right now? That's when I was referring to Dominion Payroll's twice weekly staff meetings. That's what I was talking about. I've really appreciated in the last 14 months having this. I feel like I know more about our company now than I did before the pandemic, because we have these meetings that came about because of the pandemic, and now we've continued them because we've gotten some value out of this information sharing that we have. And so having people feel like more of a stakeholder and understand decision making. You don't have to tell them everything, but giving them a bit of a glimpse into what the state of the practice is, I think can be really helpful, goes a long way. And definitely engage the team in their vision for the future and what to carry forward, what's been working, what hasn't been working. Maybe there's some things that happened or that things that you guys did pre-pandemic that that aren't relevant anymore, or maybe don't make sense, or maybe fall in that non-essential category. get the team's input on that. And of course, you as a leader can ultimately make the decision, yay or nay, but just being able to asking them for their input goes a long way, and it signals that you, even if you don't act on their suggestion, you care about their opinion. And then of course, accomplishments. Everybody likes to hear good things about themselves. If you hear any good feedback from patients or partners or one another, post that somewhere, share it somewhere, get it out there, talk about it at an in-person meeting. That goes a really long way. I know that we at Dominion Payroll really love to hear great client feedback. Typically someone will share it either via email or on Teams, and we all love to hear it. We do like to hear the constructive criticism as well, so we can get better. But the good feedback is also good. And then also, if somebody accomplishes something, they graduate from school, they buy a house, they have a baby, they earn a degree, share that too, because those little moments are even more precious now than they were before, in my opinion. Other ideas that are a bit more practical, you could have, if time out of work or childcare is a problem, you can have employees donate any PTO to one another. There still are paid leaves for people who need to be out due to COVID, childcare, or getting vaccines, and you guys can get a tax credit for that as long as you have fewer than 500 employees. You work with your payroll company to code those hours that they're out of the office for a qualifying reason, code those separately. And then when you run that payroll, your organization will get a dollar for dollar money back to cover those wages. If you want to know more about that, I have done plenty of webinars about those, so you're welcome to contact me and I'll talk about it. But that's a great way to keep somebody home if they need to be home, allow them to get a vaccine, take care of a child, and have not only they continue to be paid for it, but you don't have to pay for it either. And benefits are also included in that. So that's a great program, and that's available through September 30th. Again, simple morale boosters go a long way. Food, we all know food's a big deal. Bring in lunch, bring in a masseuse to, for quick 10-minute back rubs. Let people go a little bit early one day, gift cards, things like that. It doesn't have to be something that you spend a lot of time on or money. It just really is just a simple act of kindness and gratitude that can go a long way. And then I put coupons here because I wanted to show this thing that we've been doing at Dominion Payroll, which is our marketing team printed up a book of coupons for everybody. We mailed them to all of our offices, and they center, I put 3 in here, but they center around just little things that your employees can redeem these coupons for, and go and create a playlist, or go get a snack, step away from your desk, or even just take a minute to stop and breathe and exhale slowly, just like you're blowing out the candles on a birthday cake. In terms of actually using these, I think, it's less about teams actually ripping off a coupon and handing it to you and redeeming it. It's more about the fact that you're recognizing that life continues to be this hamster wheel. We're in this weird phase in 2021 where we're still all so busy. There's sort of a light at the end of the tunnel, but the tunnel is still there. This is really more of a way. When I received these coupons, I said, you know what, management understands, it sees me, it hears me. I'm not necessarily ripping these off and taking them to my supervisor, but just that coupon book on my desk lets me know, gives me the opportunity to understand that if I need to take a walk or take a break, or otherwise just recalibrate and reset, then management has my back. So that's one idea that we just implemented. And again, it works for our culture. It might not work for yours, but I just offer it up as an example. And that is the end of my slides. Thanks, you guys, for sticking with me today with all of my tech difficulties. My goodness, I hope the rest of the day goes more smoothly. We do have a couple of things going on here in the Q&A and the chat, and I'm going to attempt to answer those. Okay, Jennifer says, Is the Safe Haven program available to surgical techs and surgical assistants as well? Dustin.
Hey, Leslie, I've already answered that one. That was part of my tap dancer team while you were getting your.
Oh, great. Okay, awesome. All right, so what was the answer?
So we cover all physicians, NDs and DOs. We've expanded it to what you had mentioned, the nurses and students. And so that's the scope of who we cover under the legal protections currently. We are getting interest from other healthcare providers to extend those legal protections out to the entire team. And so, really the rule is if you fall into those categories, then yes. If not, then certainly let us know, because again, we're hearing from others who are showing some interest. First responders, we've had some interactions with. And so again, we're trying to, we didn't want to bite off more than we can chew when we put this forward. So we want to be very strategic in how we roll this out. But the end goal for us and our organization is that we're covering everyone on the healthcare team, because all of them are important. And not only providing care, but receiving care as well, and making sure those protections are available to them.
For sure. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I was just curious what the answer was since I didn't hear it. Okay, well that concludes all of my content today. I will say that we have on the Dominion Payroll web page, is dominionpayroll.com. We have a COVID page. If you'd like to learn more about any of those, like the paid leave programs, if you're not familiar with that, or some of the other sort of stimulus programs that came out of Washington, we've put some information up there about that. We also do webinars. I know in my intro that I said that the webinars are daily. They're no longer daily, but there is at least one a week. I'll be doing one next week on Wednesday at 11 a.m. about masks in the workplace, given the latest guidance from the CDC and the directive by Governor Northam. I've been hearing from a lot of clients asking, what do we do? Do we just go on the honor system, or do we actually actively enforce this vaccinated versus non-vaccinated face covering situation? In healthcare, I would imagine that's probably doesn't super apply to you guys because you probably are all masked up anyway. But if you're interested, we'll be on live at 11 this coming Wednesday, and we typically have something every week around HR or pandemic related sort of issues. So I thank you guys so much for today, and thank you again for dealing with my various technical difficulties. But you know what? The cat nor the child came over. So, it's either one or the other. And thank you, MSB team, for having us partner with you on this.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. And again, thanks for the very informative slide deck and some great options for us to consider. And again, just to close, for those out there, if you want any more information on Safe Haven, it's www.msb.org/safehaven. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to email us at memberservice@msb.org. We will be sending out this slide deck a little later, either today or early next week, so be on the lookout for that. So with that said, and again, a big thank you to Leslie and our partnership at Dominion Payroll. We really value that. So with that said, hopefully everyone has a great Friday, an excellent weekend. It is going to be a hot one. So everyone stay cool.
Thanks, Dustin. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.